Ah, oh, nice view from here. Nice-ish. Probably nicer than Tom's. Hello. Where are we? What time is it? Who am I? Who's he? Who are you? I'll find out that in a moment or two. Okay, so they've been tinkering again. So it's time to push back, time to fight back. The content creator fights back against the tinkerers and the mischief makers here for a little while, at any rate. Thanks for joining me. Where are we? What have we got? A dash of dashing. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Yes, so we've got some bits and pieces to chat about, some things to try out, and let's see what's happening with you wherever you are. What a day, what a week, what a month, what a year it's been for all of us in Doctor Who. I don't think we've taken enough time to chill, have we? I've just got to catching my breath a little for the comeback of the live stream later on, the Type 40 live stream, that is. And yeah, I thought I'd hang with you for a little while, whoever you are, and test out some of these new things that they've added to our suite here, just to make sure that nothing cocks up later on when there's a whole screen full of faces and lots of expectations of a good time to be had by all. Let's chill out and talk Doctor Who for a little while and run through a couple of bits and pieces. Okay, we've got people in the live chat already. Thank you for being here. We'll get to you in a moment or two. Yeah, because it's not just me that's popping up. Somebody else popped up yesterday. Where is it? Yeah, so popped up courtesy of this, the One Show. The One Show. It's sort of become a little bit like Blue Peter was, or Swap Shop was, in that it was they were reliable places that you could find sort of Doctor Who content and Doctor Who luminaries, wasn't it? Back in the day. And now, yeah, the One Show has sort of taken over from that, really. And Doctor Who people, past and the present, can often be found cluttering up the sofa, talking absolute nonsense. And that's no exception to that this time. Doesn't he know that I'm the one who talks nonsense? Okay, who've we got so far? Thank you, people, for joining me off the cuff in this way. Let's see who's falling in so far. I can see on the screen, come to think of it, I can see, thanks to this new innovation. So it's who's here? We have Michael Hallett. Hi, Michael. Looking very dapper this afternoon, this evening, depending on where you are. You always look pretty dapper, though, don't you? That's standard picture. We've got Stephanie Barrett in the live chat. Hi, Dan, and everyone in the chat from Hobart, Tasmania, Australia. 11 p.m. there. So are you? And it's quite chilly as well, I would imagine, isn't it? So Matt Potts says you probably got a hot drink on the go, all wrapped up in a what do they call it? A slanket. Sam's in as well. Afternoon, Sam. And I've got Andrew here as well. Just Andrew. Andrew says, good afternoon, Dan, and everybody. Thank you, Andrew. Afternoon all from Woodhouse 122. Thank you, Woodhouse. Oh, this is nice. Isn't this cozy? Hey, old chat, says Garbage. I'm on a train, so the signal is really choppy. Where is he heading to? Yes, so good to have a few of you here. I'm not sure what I make of this this live chat in the corner there. It's very small, isn't it? Can you make it bigger? I don't think you can. What's the point in it being there then? Maybe we'll make some sense of it all over the next however long, because I think it's time to put someone on blast. One of my favourite Doctor Who props from times past this was, I'm still not sure why, because the closer you look at it, the worse it sort of looks, but that was the 80s for you, wasn't it? Yes, so talking about him, Ncuti Gatwa, remember him? Yeah, me too, yeah. Wasn't around for very long, was he? He sort of played the Doctor on Doctor Who for a little while, in between doing lots of other things, like appearing on social media and things like that, things that are really important to him. He seemed to view playing Doctor Who as a sort of inconvenience, I've come to think over over recent times. Finished filming the bulk of his stuff well over a year ago now. Came back for a couple of days in February to film a sort of changeover in someone's back garden. Very dignified. Oh dear. And yeah, and then he disappeared, didn't he, for a little while? I actually expected to not see or hear much of Ncuti Gatwa for quite a while. He started to pop up already now. I wonder why. Why is he being advised to make good on his association with the show? Maybe they think that we liked him or that he made some sort of impact in the show, because he absolutely didn't, did he? I mean, certainly not a household name, and the odd person out there, like the normies who may recognise his face, they're still not going to be able to really put a name to it, are they? But there he was on the one show so far, yet again. This was last night as of time of recording, and he has confessed, everybody. He's confessed to his biggest regret already since leaving the show. You'd think he wouldn't have time for any regrets of any kind. I think because he would have filmed the bulk of the material, as I said, some time ago. Maybe what went on in the early part of this year was quite intense for him. We know that things had broken down behind the scenes in boardrooms and probably over Zoom calls and things like that over an extended period. How much of that he was aware of, privy to, we'll probably never know that. But it did seem like it was very, very stormy. And obviously, they've said, haven't they, that the thing was filmed. The extra material was filmed. The eventual broadcast ending was filmed very, very hastily. So he's been on the one show to add a few bits and pieces. We heard from him a couple of weeks ago on another show altogether, but no, he's turned up. He's turned up yet again, and you know, this isn't somebody. You know, he's not one of the world's best communicators, is he? Ncuti Gatwa hasn't got a great deal to say for himself. Always seemed to be smiling, but generally speaking, quite vacantly. That's not a crime in and of itself, is it? You know, not everybody can be particularly articulate. Not everybody has a lot to say. And in all fairness, a job is a job to a great many actors. I think it's just hard to square that circle when you see somebody take on what is the biggest role on British television. You think, oh, he's got to feel the weight of that, hasn't he? But it seemed not at the time. But could it be that with the passage of time, a couple of months since the season finale, the reality war screened, 5 months since he filmed his last material, and over a year since he was a full-time Time Lord, could that be hitting home a little with Ncuti Gatwa? Well, this is what he got to say on the One Show last night. Now, he was a guest on the One Show on BBC One. Now, the One Show has been running, as I said, for nearly 20 years now. Started out with was Adrian Chiles and Nadia Sawalha. They were the original hosts, weren't they? And then it went on to great success when they moved it away from Birmingham. It used to be recorded and broadcast live out of the mailbox in Birmingham. So that's not far from me at all. And they moved it to London, and that was when it sort of became a mainstay of the television landscape, really. So they replaced Nadia Sawalha with Christine Blakely, and then it went pretty popular, I think, for a while, the chemistry between those two. And they went off and did something else, and they got in Alex Jones. And she's been hosting it, I think, for the best part of 15 years with various different people. And yet Doctor Who has been a presence on it pretty much constantly ever since. Ncuti Gatwa was only on there a few months ago, 2 or 3 months ago, with Rada Setu and Jerry Halliwell there dressed as John Lennon. It cracks me up. So he's on this all the time as it is. Doesn't seem to be doing his career any real favours. And Doctor Who has had this long-standing, as I say, relationship with the One Show. There's Matt Smith and Karen Gillan, again with Alex Jones, and former host Chris Evans, former husband of Billy Piper, Chris Evans, hanging out of... Is that what they used to call a morph suit? I don't know, maybe... I think it was. Yeah, My son had one of those. Yes, so Doctor Who returns to the One Show. Ncuti Gatwa there with Hollywood legend Jamie Lee Curtis. Is Jamie Lee Curtis a legend? I don't know. She looks like she looks quite a stateswoman-like there, doesn't she? And Ncuti Gatwa in long trousers again. That's why you might not have recognised him. He's dressed like an adult. But let's hear what he had to say, because the conversation did turn slightly to Doctor Who, despite the fact that he was there to promote that play that he's in, the one about William Shakespeare and Kit Marlowe. And we've talked about it before on the show, haven't we? But of course, the thing is, nobody's really that interested in that, are they? Let's be honest. There's not many. There'll be a few Doctor Who fans who go and see it, I suppose. You know, there's a certain breed of Doctor Who fan who likes to be photographed at events like this, and they will almost certainly turn up. But for the most part, let's be honest, we don't care. Sorry, Ncuti. Yes, so what did he have to say when he was next to Jamie Lee Curtis on The One Show? Let's find out. Here we are.
Back at Doctor Who, which he was so brilliant in, you have just one little regret.
I never got to fight a Dalek. Dalek or a Cyberman. So, I mean, it's just the crux of Doctor Who.
A Dalek or a Cyberman, singular. He was only willing to take one at a time. He was going to take on loads of them, just one at a time, very, very strictly.
Yeah, so might do that.
When? How? Why is he holding himself like that? It's very unfortunate. And why is Jamie Lee Curtis looking down and smiling? What is he showing her?
Go fight a Dalek.
By the way, another secret announcement on your show is like the so hot place secret, like no one else in the world knows that this is happening, and we're like, you guys are like, what is their truth serum in this?
I know.
I thought it was on the One Show, Jamie.
She's trying to dig him out of a hole there, isn't she? Pretty unsuccessfully. So, yeah, I never got to fight a Dalek or a Cyberman. Just the crux of Doctor Who. So, yes, so might do that. Might go fight a Dalek. He's just thinking up this stuff on the spot, isn't he? It's just the first thing that pops into his mind, such as it is. It strikes me that time for him is obviously considerably longer ago than it is for us as fans, isn't it? All that time in between, the extended time that they spent filming 2 seasons pretty much for the sake of argument, back to back. Very intense, not just for this actor, but for the entire cast and crew. Whereas we are here, you know, we've literally just been served the final rounds of it. So is he reflective? Is he genuine in feeling that there was a missed opportunity there? I think he may be. But I think the reason why is perhaps it's hitting home to him very much after the fact now. Never did this, never did that, because these could be the things that not just people on chat shows would ask him about, but on those odd occasions where he's doing Comic Cons and signings and things like that, which do happen in the margins. They are carrying on, aren't they? I think convention season is sort of all year round now. They can do as much or as little of these events that they want. But I think what he's probably finding is that this isn't the job that he thought it would be, that he can't move on from it in the way that he could other jobs, even something high profile like sex education, and that the same questions are going to keep cropping up all the time. So he's not the first actor to have taken the role of the Doctor at face value without giving it any huge amount of thought or being aware of the implications for the rest of his career or his personal life. That's fair enough in itself, but it is still quite surprising to see him say something like this when it was his choice to leave, in effect. Is it any great loss to the series that Ncuti Gatwa's 15th Doctor never got to face a Dalek or a Cyberman? Because from our point of view, once the Doctor does that, so they're never really the Doctor until they've had a Dalek story. That's what a lot of us say, isn't it, quite regularly? Is that still true? Does that still hold true? No Master either, was there? We got the Rani, we got Sutek, we got Omega, that giant turd with a face. That's probably enough, isn't it? I don't know. I think that obviously he's there to promote the play. That's part and parcel of any promotional circuit, isn't it? That's why he's actually there, not to answer questions about Doctor Who. But it's going to keep cropping up. And I don't know. I think in the short term, we may see the frustration of that start to build on Ncuti Gatwa's face. What do you think, guys? Was anybody watching that last night on screen? Who's here in the live chat? Michael says, did he say he regrets leaving the show, or did I just mishear that? No, he didn't say that he regretted leaving the show itself. I think that he regrets not having ticked a few of the customary boxes that people associate with the character and with the series that could dog him in future interviews, because obviously he's going to be promoting. The idea is he'll move on to various things on the stage and some of the movies. He's got that movie coming out later this year, The Roses, with Olivia Colman and Benedict Cumberbatch. And there's a danger that people are going to, he'll be doing the circuit talking about that, and people will still keep bringing up Doctor Who. And I get the impression that's not something that he bargained for. A couple of weeks ago, he was on the Laura Kussenberg show, again promoting this play and talking about a ballet, a charity ballet thing. And again, he was pressed about Doctor Who on that, wasn't he? Dalek Debando says, in other words, dumbass. He's not the sharpest knife in the box. I don't think there should be any expectation of our actors or celebrities to be of any great intellect, or necessarily the most articulate people in the world. But obviously the nature of live TV, it can be very exposing. Charlotte's in the live chat. Hello, Charlotte. We'll see Charlotte later on. Looking forward to Type 40 Live later. Charlotte says, I'm surprised he said anything. He looked uncomfortable the last time. Having been, I think he was perhaps a little more uncomfortable on that show on the Sunday morning, because that's a more politically minded show. It's slightly more serious, isn't it? And so I don't think he expected to be pressed by Laura Kussenberg in the way that he was. Not that she probed him kind of Frost and Nixon style, but she did ask him fairly directly. And when he gave a pretty quite silly answer, she couldn't hide her surprise. And you could tell that she didn't believe a word of it any more than we did when he insisted that he'd quit the part because he was getting old and his body was tired. So I don't think Ncuti's having a great time with it. I mean, he's not made many appearances, but the appearances that he is making on British television, British radio, he's getting the promo stuff out of the way, and then people are immediately leaping on Doctor Who, aren't they? And I get the impression he's finding that surprising. Michael Hallett says, I'm so glad he's gone. Shame he took the show with him. I hold Russell T Davies considerably more responsible for any short-term or long-term damage to the show than Ncuti Gatwa. In all fairness, I think Ncuti Gatwa was incredibly disappointing as the Doctor. I bet Russell T Davies wrote the Daleks and the Cybermen. Thankfully. I think. Sorry, Woodhouse 122. I bet Russell T Davies vetoed the Daleks and the Cybermen. So thankfully, Ncuti never will. Did he veto them? I think it was a clear directive from Russell not to feature the two biggest villains, the two biggest fan favourites, if you like, in that first batch for reasons of his own. I think it's absolute lunacy. Absolute lunacy. Dalek de Bando says Jamie Lee Curtis, international star. Who's the bloke? Well, obviously this is a UK show. So even Jamie Lee Curtis hasn't got the profile here that she has internationally. Andrew says the news is going to be so quiet until after the war between the land and the sea, whatever it's called. Ncuti sounds half asleep. I don't think he expects to be asked about these things when he's promoting a play and they ask him about Doctor Who. I think the frustration is going to mount to the point where they may start saying beforehand, can you not bring up Doctor Who? Never mind, says Sir Sidney Rough Diamond. I'm sure he's too busy for all that, with Hollywood keeping him busy now. Movie coming up September, I think. The Roses. It does look really funny. Ncuti Gatwa plays the. You'll know him immediately because he plays the camp best friend type guy working in the local florist. It seems so. Even more to type. Rob Alexander says, in retrospect, it is odd that Russell T Davies didn't give Ncuti a Dalek episode, especially if he was trying to impress Disney. Was he trying to impress Disney? Well, yeah, I mean, I view the entire thing as a proof of concept thing. So the 2 seasons of Doctor Who and the spin-off to prove the worth and to demonstrate the possibilities with the show, with the format, with the brand. So not to bring out one of the major, the biggest marketing cash cow that Doctor Who has in its arsenal was very foolish, I think. Sincerity seems a yet untapped value for these DEI inserts. I think sincerity is in short supply, generally speaking, across the entertainment industry now, across the media. I don't think it's anything to do with the nature of anybody's employment. I think people are conscious of saying the right thing, being perceived as saying the right things, as agreeing with the things one is supposed to agree with, being on the right side of history and all that nonsense. It's more performative than ever, isn't it? You say a word out of turn, and you don't even have to get a huge wealth of sort of complaints to Ofcom or anywhere like that. If there's enough clapback on social media, small number of people can make enough noise and cast a particularly unsavoury light, then it can be career-ending. Charlotte says, I think Ncuti never really could 100% get into the part of the Doctor. He never gave himself the chance. And the material, the entire thing was ill-conceived from the very start. The man shouldn't have taken the job if he couldn't turn up. He was already engaged with his duties on sex education until well after filming started on Doctor Who. Who do we blame for that? That shouldn't have been allowed. But who had the ultimate call on that? Russell probably should never have offered it to an actor who wasn't available. In a sense, yet again, I blame Russell T Davies more than I blame Ncuti Gatwa. Stephanie says, I can understand how he'd wanted to have his Doctor meet them, Daleks especially, less so Cybermen. See, at the time when he was doing it, I think it was a case of, it's a job of work, get the next script in, learn it, turn up, do the job, all that kind of thing. I don't think, I get the impression that it was made at such a momentum that Ncuti Gatwa never really got to think on those terms, to have any wants. It's believed that he was initially thinking long term, but obviously something drastically changed in between them preparing to shoot the Giggle and his eventual departure there. We'll find out one day, won't we? When the books are written, then we'll find out. Adrian James is in the live chat here, watching on YouTube. Afternoon, Dan. Good afternoon, Adrian. Good to see you. Andrew says, as much as I don't blame him, I'm glad he's left. Me too. Me too. There are things that I do blame Ncuti Gatwa for. I think he put in a middling performance. I think he wasn't as focused as he could have been, and I think he should have been a bit more steadfast in his own initial wants. I'm sure of his belief in how he wanted to play the character. There's a tendency, I think, to look at an actor, to look at Ncuti Gatwa, because he doesn't look his age. He's nearly 33 now. He doesn't look it. But I think there's a tendency to kind of infantilize Ncuti Gatwa in the same way that there was Jodie Whittaker. Jodie Whittaker was approaching middle age when she took the role, and she's well into it now. But there's this idea that neither of them have any agency in their own career. You know, they do. Ncuti Gatwa has, however many million followers on other social media networks. Jodie Whittaker, minimum of 10 years into a career, a professional career. So the idea that they were kind of passengers and didn't have a say, I think that's a stretch. But I can understand why they would, and why Ncuti in particular would trust the instincts of Russell T Davies, him having had such a big success with the show before. I mean, look how much more relaxed he seems here just a couple of months ago. And yet he'd already filmed his departure at that point. Maybe he's just pleased to be in the company of a former Spice Girl. I think I would be. Stuck between two of my favourite, two of my biggest crushes throughout my life, come to think of it. It was the Union Jack dress. Yes. Yes. Okay. Davros Gate was a red flag for the lack of Daleks in Ncuti's era. I don't see it as being reflective of that at all myself. Hello, everyone, says Jonathan Cox. Good to see you, Jonathan. Good afternoon, my friend. Stephanie adds that Russell T Davies is to blame for the damage. It would have been interesting to see how Ncuti would have got on with decent scripts, great storylines, and characterization. That could have helped his acting. In all seriousness, we talk about how few, isn't it a good job that this ultimately mediocre actor didn't get a chance to pollute more of Doctor Who's history and icons by ultimately not sticking around for very long. The truth of the matter is, though, just like wearing a more doctorish costume and adopting a permanent silhouette would have probably have made him feel more like the Doctor, which would have come out in the performance. I've no doubt about that. It's likely that for the actor too, appearing opposite recognizable characters like Daleks and Cybermen may have also helped him get there. But I think that would have only been the case over a far longer period of time. Dalek DeBando says, Ncuti being busy will be short-lived. His type rely on youthful exuberance. I can see maybe him doing the Lenny Henry life story once he's completely physically knackered at 42. We'd have you believe he is knackered. They've already done a Lenny Henry biopic. It's filmed not far from me. It's Danny and the, was it called Danny and the Zoo or something like that? It was partly fictionalized. They changed the name of the lead character from Lenny to Danny. But yeah, it was, I don't see that, don't look anything like one another apart from both being black. Yeah, it's very different actors. He's plastered in makeup. They're all plastered in makeup. Rose Kirby asks, just want to ask, is there any truth Russell T Davies was only going to lie for the 60th anniversary specials, and that was it? Lie about what, Rose? You've kind of lost me there. I don't know what you're getting at. Lorraine says that Ncuti Gatwa seems to be the kind of guy who lives on his looks, which will fade. Fortunately, most gay people are not that shallow. Just want decent and writing without gaping plot holes. Actors are obviously, they do have to consider their looks, don't they? More than the average person in any other sector, really. I don't mind. I've said this before. I like my actors to be eccentric, a little kooky, larger than life, and I think that vanity kind of comes with a lot of that. I think you've got to have to do that for a living. You've got to be driven by a certain amount of ego. You've got to be an exhibitionist to some extent, perhaps. Some of the actors, I just realized a couple of the actors I know might be watching this, thinking, what are you talking about? I'm not an exhibitionist. I don't know, but to some extent, I think perhaps you have got to be. What else is in the live chat? Yeah, so do you think it's a major faux pas on their part not to have put the 15th Doctor against the Daleks and the Cybermen? Could that have saved everything? And we haven't got any quotes yet on this in response from either a Dalek or a Cyberman. They're off, too busy enjoying the British summertime. Yeah, as you can see, they've got far better things to do than to sit there going over the regrets about not appearing in Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor. Oh dear. How many big Hollywood directors watch the One Show? You're better off emailing your CV, Ncuti. One Show is, I mean, again, it was a big show. How big is any show now on British television in relative terms? Ratings have gone down across the board, and the ratings for the One Show are no exception. It's a miracle that they can get people like Jamie Lee Curtis on, but then again, she's also she's of the right opinions, isn't she? She's part of the elite. What was like Jamie Lee Curtis? Halloween and Trading Places. Yeah, definitely in Trading Places. Prom Night, True Lies, great movies from the past. What else? What else have we got here? So we've got Lorraine, we've got Stephanie, we've got Rose, we've got Charlotte. It's an all-girls live chat for this chill out stream at Type 40. Yeah, so the Daleks very much are the Doctor Who monster, aren't they? Generations of British children have grown up not just terrified of them, but picking them up in merchandise form at every opportunity. I don't think this is going to be leaving Ncuti Gatwa behind anytime soon. Whether it's questions like that about the window dressing of appearing in a character like Doctor Who, the cultural impact, or that peskier question about why did you quit? It took the best part of 2 decades for Christopher Eccleston to answer that question, even remotely fully, didn't it? And even now, there are still lots of little gaps in that. Not necessarily gaps in his story. I don't think he's being untruthful, but obviously he's self-censoring for professional reasons, because obviously it's a job of work, and despite the way that he feels about certain people associated with that, he's probably observing certain confidences as well. I don't object to anybody doing that. But Ncuti Gatwa, every time he sort of every time he's asked a question about Doctor Who, he does look a little bit like a rabbit stuck in the headlights. And eventually, obviously, when it all comes out about what on earth went wrong, and the big split, it's only when the first person cracks and starts talking about it, then obviously there'll be a deluge, I think, of truth. To wait and see, won't we? What else have we got? Charlotte says the one show looks cheap to make. Well, it is cheap and cheerful telly, isn't it? You know, it's the standard chat show thing. Stick a sofa up, couple of cameras, wheel them in one by one, show a few clips, and I think they need quite often. It's quite often the case that the guests need them as much as they need the guests. Got something that they want to promote. They want to sell tickets for that play, or for that movie. Whatever Jamie Lee Curtis is, hasn't she done some sort of sequel to Freaky Friday with Lindsay Lohan? They've dragged her out of whatever pub, I don't know. But yeah, Lindsay Lohan's back as well. So there's a circuit to these things. The one show set is a bit more elaborate than when I used to watch it. Boomer Doug's in the live chat. He says, fortunately at my age, the memory is fragile. Gatwa will soon cease to exist in my boomer brain. He was just the crying bloke in the dress. No, he's not playing Doctor Who. He's dressing like a normal person. It's taken. See, when you see pictures of Ncuti Gatwa there on the one show, in all sincerity, and I'm saying that half joking, but when you see him dressed in long trousers, you know, nice clothes, I'm sure it cost him a few bob, but you see him dressed normally compared to how he used to dress at any engagement while he was playing Doctor Who. Well, did he think that dressing like a cock came with that part? And now he's representing himself, angling for work, wanting to move on. He seems a little bit more relaxed and a bit more relatable, you know? A Fish Called Wanda. Stephanie Barrett. Great movie. Now and again, I still put a chip up my nose and pretend to be. Is it Michael Palin, Kevin Kline in that? That particular scene in True Lies remembers Michael Hallett. Absolute cracker. Now, Andrew says, I'm not sure, as the scripts have been so poor for Doctor Who. I'm not even sure the Daleks could have saved the era. Well, no, of course they couldn't. But incrementally, they would have helped if more of those fundamentals are put into place, then the general public recognize it as the same show, and they're more inclined to turn up. There are things that the general public will, in relative terms, proportionately, will turn up for, and Daleks have always been one of them. I think that would likely still be the case if they promoted it properly, and it almost doesn't matter who's playing the Doctor. There are people who will always turn up for the Daleks. You hear the word Dalek and TARDIS crop up in public conversation a lot. They're so well known. Again, that's starting to drain away as well, though, isn't it? Again, with the series has only just left the screen too. In the 90s, I think that both words maintained a certain social currency. A good 5 years after the show ended, maybe even longer, but certainly by 2000. People were starting to forget. Freakier Friday looks terrible, but I'm prejudging. So yeah, it's what it is. It's silly family comedy movie. I've got nothing against that sort of thing. Having a Dalek episode might have brought the casual audience back, but Russell T Davies would rather have drag queens and Nigerian barbers. Yeah, there's some very strange choices. When you look back now, when they're rolling out a season of Doctor Who, it's quite intense when you're following it on the weekly and when you're covering it too, doing something like this. But even the conversations we have amongst ourselves, it's a machine, isn't it? And for that, how many weeks was it on for? Was it 8 weeks? 8 weeks this time. God, it used to be like 13, didn't it? The machine sort of spins and spins and spins and spins, and we're getting thrown so much new content. It's quite hard to process it all. You kind of roll with the punches. But when certainly now we're a couple of months on from that, and you look back and you reflect, okay, what did we get? What didn't we get? How does this make me feel now that we see the shape of the season? Because ideally, each season of Doctor Who should be more than the sum of its parts, but that hasn't been the case for a very, very long time. And as soon as that season ended, pretty much, we got nothing but bad publicity. And the guy steering the ship, the man who's usually camped out on the one show, Russell T Davies, taking a pause, audibly pausing. A man who always seems so sure of himself, now anything but. There's definitely no love lost between the British public and Ncuti Gatwa, either as Doctor Who or in any other capacity. This man has made no impact whatsoever in the role. I think he's the first actor to have played Doctor Who, not to become a household name, not to become identifiable with the part for better or for worse. He's been and gone and nobody really cared. And I think he'll feel that over time. I think he'll definitely feel that. Yeah. So what do you think? Now you've had a couple of months to digest it all. I'm surprised that Ncuti Gatwa's turned up and is willing to talk about this at all, to tell you the truth. But then again, he does have other projects to promote. Rob says, can you imagine John Pertwee or Tom Baker visiting a Nigerian barber? And that's the story. I've got no problem with that story in and of itself as a setup. I just couldn't understand a frigging word of it. I have no idea what it was about. I don't necessarily mind that, but it's the notion that he was, he only felt safe in that time and space, in that community. But the Doctor's a citizen of the universe. That doesn't change because the body he's currently sporting is outwardly of a different ethnicity. It's silly. Culture is changing, adds Dalek to Bando. He and Bad Wolf were well behind the wave, and now they're desperately trying to play down their cult identity. Are they desperately trying? They've just gone really mega quiet. I think that's perfectly natural. I think we can look a little. We can see the things we want to see. They've not got anything to promote at the moment. So they've all gone really, really quiet. But I think it is telling the uber confident showman, ringmaster that is Russell T Davies was not the same guy we saw out promoting that last season of Doctor Who. Right from the premiere event, there was a noticeable difference in him. And then by the end of the season, well, you didn't see him for dust, did you? I mean, in the course of that premiere, I think it was, did BBC Newsround speak to him? There's 2 or 3 different outlets spoke to him, and you were very aware of the material that was shot at the start of the evening, and when they caught up with him a little bit later on, he definitely seemed like a man who'd got on the outside of a few bevies. He seemed a lot looser lipped, but he also seemed a little like, if not a hunted animal, then he looked somewhat defeated, and that's not a Russell T Davies that I think we've seen before. Whereas Ncuti Gatwa seemed happy to be in the company of Radha Setu and various other cast members who he obviously hadn't seen or worked with for a while. There's nothing wrong with that. But with hindsight, he seemed like he was happy to be out of it. He seemed distant, I think is the word. Not as distant as Millie Gibson. She looked like she just stopped off midway through a pub crawl, didn't she? But yeah, I think when you watch that stuff back now, you can see that it was all over by that point. Sodor Engine says, going to be harsh here, but Ncuti Gatwa can't call himself a doctor because he didn't face the Daleks. Culturally, I think that's obviously that's not true. You know, the man did play the Doctor effectively for 2 full seasons, but I think when the Doctor Who history books are written down, this fact is going to be one that people keep coming back to. He never did this, he never did that. It'll be a list of possibilities, of wasted potential, unticked boxes. And whilst I don't think anybody will be losing any sleep over a golden era, a further golden era that we never had, I think it will become very evident as we move on, and as the brand moves on. The brand will move on, even if the show doesn't remember. The brand will move on, as the merchandise and everything else that they're doing more than demonstrates. As all of that moves on, and as Ncuti Gatwa's career moves on, that will be more apparent. Lorraine suggests that Russell would have destroyed the Daleks, and not in a good way. I don't know. Again, he didn't destroy them before, but he didn't destroy Davros before, did he? Came back and polished him off, and heaven knows what he would have made of the Cybermen in 2025. They are waiting for the curtain call that never came during the Ncuti Gatwa era. Thank you for joining us there, Garbage. One of our loyal moderators. Have you noticed that these cultists, like Russell T Davies and Ncuti Gatwa, exaggerate and bullshit to avoid a straight question and then laugh in the interviewer's face? Come on. I think that's pushing it quite a lot. Highly contentious. I mean, I mean, you know that I feel that wokeism and that ideology is cult-like, but they are out promoting TV shows. I don't think they're laughing in interviewers' faces. But I think Ncuti Gatwa continually now, twice in the last few weeks, these are questions he never anticipated having to answer. And I feel that the last thing that he expected would be for the response to answers that he's doing his best to think up these answers on the spot, isn't he? So he's delivering these answers, and people are laughing in his face. You know, that Laura Kussenberg, there's no one more BBC than her. And yet even she wasn't willing to publicly just nod her head and go, that sounds reasonable. That sounds perfectly reasonable. Of course, they're insisting that it's still to be continued. We've got no further word on Doctor Who, on a Ncuti Gatwa-less Doctor Who. I mean, Ncuti Gatwa says he might come back and do that. That's just something that people say, isn't it? I think, obviously, because David Tennant's returned to the character a couple of times, Billy Piper's returned to the show, actors being able to, if not treat the series like some sort of revolving door they can get in and out of, something that they needn't necessarily 100% have to put behind them now. That may have sunk in with him. I think it's unlikely, obviously purely speculative on my part. I think it's unlikely he regrets leaving the show under the present circumstances. But I think should the series kind of return to cultural relevance and any kind of creative high, then he'll be more than happy to trade off his association with it and to return to kind of ride off any credibility that it may have at such a point. Obviously, there's so many ifs in the equation there. We'll never know, will we? I mean, is it possible that they could recontract Ncuti Gatwa to play the Doctor in the short term for a potential further season if we hadn't have had the regeneration scene? I would have thought that was possible. But once you've shown the character to burst into flames and become someone else, that's, in Doctor Who terms, that's as near to a done deal as you can possibly have, isn't it? Thank you for your support, Rose. Good to have you in the live chat there. And Lorraine. Garbage says, I love impromptu streams, especially when I'm not working. Cheers for joining me for this one. Yes, I thought it was just worth sort of spitballing and talking about for a little while before we're back later this evening. As of time of recording, of course, you could be watching this after the fact, in which case it could already be there. That's Type 40 Live Insanity. Live streaming on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and X from 8 p.m. Thursday. That's tonight. Who News, chat, nostalgia, and laughs there. That's a big promise, isn't it? But we do our best, and more often than not, we deliver wholeheartedly. Certainly tick a lot more boxes than Ncuti Gatwa ever got around to. And there's the return of the Doctor Who diary as well. Don't miss that. Why does the fugitive Doctor look so self-conscious? And who's that in the bottom left? Oh, I've forgotten all about her. Join us for Type 40 Live here later. If that doesn't make you want to go to the toilet, I don't know what does. Oh dear. Yes, so Ncuti Gatwa will doubtless continue to pop up here and there, depending on whichever gigs he secures next. I suspect, in all truth, because the guy, people who have seen him on stage do speak of an energetic performer, somebody who's, quite idiosyncratic. In all fairness, you're never going to confuse him with anybody else, are you? But there is only room for so many working, thriving actors. I think it's just as likely that Ncuti Gatwa could end up just falling back to becoming some sort of Instagram personality who needs to be seen in the right clothes, who takes sponsorships rather than roles. Can work out very nicely for some people. Obviously, that's not what he wants. That's not the career trajectory that his reputation will have in mind for him. But I think to be part of such an enormous failure as this most recent era of Doctor Who, to expect to come out of that completely unscathed is naive. Particularly if you never had a career beforehand, because let's be honest, I do know people who watch sex education, but they're very few and far between. It's not like Line of Duty, is it? Or Mr. Bates versus the Post Office, or whatever it was called. These things, the things that have had a major kind of cultural impact in Britain over the last few years, you either watched that show or you didn't. It's kind of what they used to call a cult success. So yeah, I think Ncuti Gatwa has failed in the part and will continue having awkward conversations and being put on the spot from now until heaven knows when, until they put some sort of clause in his contracts when he has to go on these shows about the things that he is willing or not willing to talk about. Let's have one last look at what you guys are saying in the live chat. What have you put on blast? Thank you for this podcast, says Lorraine Sheridan. Much appreciated. This isn't a podcast. This is just a chill stream. Live streams and podcasts they're not the same things. Podcasts are recorded and edited and posted onto podcatchers. But thank you, Lorraine. Happy to oblige. You all ready to talk about more BBC stupid ideas, asks Charlotte there in the live chat. And Garbage excited about the return of the diary. Yeah, we'll see you a little later on. Mark Milford says, Dan, looking back, outside your inside sources, much of the reporting and commentary on the show, or about the show from its producers and actors, seems to lack the respect for the show's legacy and fans. Yeah, I mean, Russell T Davies, who seemed very proudly one of us, in a way that Stephen Moffat is still very proudly one of us. Russell T Davies seems to have demonized us, made examples of us. And I think he's adopted this sort of stance whereby he feels like he's teaching us all a lesson, putting us in our place since he came back to the show. Initially, obviously returning David Tennant to the role. But the handover, in effect, seemed like he was in tune with where we were at, where the general public were at with the show, where its perceived golden period was, and the right note to hit if you were to remind the broader audience of why they loved the show in the first place. The truth of the matter is, though, that with hindsight, what he was actually doing was exploiting that association, not just the iconography, but the very people associated with it, to drive home further beliefs of his, subjective beliefs and talking points that line up with an ideology that he completely subscribes to brainwash us, to brainwash the British public, and to weaponize something that people had grown up with, in effect. And I think that's unforgivable. Absolutely unforgivable. Ideologically captured and intellectually compromised, as I've said before. It needn't have gone that way. Needn't have gone that way. And now that the door's closed on the era and he's gone, we're left yet again to pick up the pieces and to be continually taken for granted and exploited by BBC Studios, so it seems. Well, we're only going to take so much of that, aren't we? Vote with your wallet. Defund the BBC. You don't need a license fee. Don't have one. Don't buy their merchandise if you don't like it. Yes, Rose, there is a show tonight. It's 8 p.m. here on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and X with myself and a crack panel of Doctor Who pundits. It's been good. I haven't done one of these streams for quite a long time. A good 6 months or so. Rough and rougher. Yeah, thank you. Try my best. I'll have a shave before later. Darren's in the live chat. Afternoon, Dan. Good afternoon, Darren. And goodbye, Darren. Goodbye, everybody else. Thank you for joining me for this impromptu chill out stream here with this report on Ncuti Gatwa's most recent appearance on the One Show. He returned there with Jamie Lee Curtis, wasn't it? Jamie Lee Curtis and the hosts, Alex Jones. And I can't remember the girl on the left, the one who's in a kind of custom David Tennant costume. I know that she used to present Top of the Pops, Club or something or other. Whoever they are. So there they were on the One Show. That is still up. If you have got a TV license, you can watch that on the iPlayer in full, should you wish to. Go and do that. And yeah, we'll get back to you. The link is in the description to this video. We're back later on with Type 40 Live as ever here on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and X. Don't miss that. Cliff Maxwell, he's just woken up. Go back and watch what you've missed, Cliff, and give us your opinion there about Ncuti Gatwa's latest comments about his big regret. Well, is it a big regret? I think definitely a regret. The reasons why he's regretting it, I don't think they're anything sort of fanish. I think he just regrets having got involved with this show in the first place. I think it's very clear that he does have a certain amount of affection for the fans, and why wouldn't he? He knows that we'll continue to pay to meet him at various events, so he's not stupid, is he? But I think he could be wondering if he's bitten off more than he can chew as regards his broader career by this association with Doctor Who. Let me know what you think of that. Ncuti Gatwa's latest appearance on The One Show, and I'll see you in the comments. Bye-bye.